I think the first point is that most people in our society are taught to be afraid of their own mind. So we are raised in a community, in structures, in systems that all the time creates this fear of lack of control, of what is there inside, of, oh, don't think about this and that topics, because if you will think about them, you don't know what's going to happen to you, or if you lose control over your mind, what is going to happen to you. So there is a lot of fear installed in us from the abilities, the potentials of our mind. And I think that by practicing meditation, you contradict, or you can heal this fear before you go and consume a substance that throws you off to really unknown places without any preparation and without any gradual process on the way there. So when you sit and meditate for a longer period of time, you get acquainted with your mind. You see how your mind functions. If there are things in your mind that you try to avoid, they will pop up. If there are stories or moments from your past that you try to put aside, they will come up during the meditation retreats, and they will give you a sense of what is there inside your mind, a certain kind of feeling of security and safety in your interaction, in your exploration of the mind. So when you come to consume psychedelic, you will not be so afraid of what is there inside. You will not be so hooked or so imprisoned by this idea of how dangerous the mind is. I may go crazy at any altered state. It may be a sign for that something went wrong or is going the wrong direction. All these concepts, all this idea, meditation can really tone them down, because when you learn how to stay with your experience, regardless of whether this experience is pleasant or unpleasant, gradually you feel at home within yourself. And I feel that this sense of feeling at home, this sense of feeling safe and secure in your interaction, in your encounters with your body and mind, is very essential to the ability to navigate or go through the psychedelic realms in a much calmer or a much more open and curious way, which will maybe be the second thing I will mention. When you practice meditation gradually, a great sense of curiosity is born. So things that previously were seemed like, okay, what is there, in my breath? How can it possibly be interesting to stay with my breath for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 3 days, becomes this fountain of marvel, this fountain of, oh, the breath, there is something there. I think this standpoint is of curiosity towards life, curiosity towards present moment, curiosity towards experience, is a really wonderful place to come from when you're going to dive into this world of psychedelics. There is no guarantee that you will not get caught in a new habitual pattern, in a new habitual repetitive prison. Even if you're doing the best, practices, and you're being supported by really good teachers, the mind is a very, very, very tricky thing. And to really liberate yourself, so to really explore and experience freedom from the known, which is for me the essence of the spiritual practice or the spiritual life, to be really liberated from this cage of repetition, you need a lot of support, a lot of help. I've been traveling with my family for the past 10 months in a little caravan, exploring the world and so on. So I think that really living with other people in intimacy, in really deep intimacy and very close to each other, is something that really kind of demands from you this flexibility of finding every time a new way. So sometimes I sing, and sometimes I dance, and sometimes I practice yoga, and sometimes I practice in nature, solitude and quietude by myself. So I try not to get caught, or not to get rigid, or not to get dogmatic about any of the practices I do. I think this is why I'm so so excited and happy about this ability to integrate and to talk loudly and to talk publicly about the reality of my spiritual practice, which has been integrating this so-called contradictory roads like psychedelic and Buddhism, But for me, there's no contradiction, because when you get caught in a dogma, when you get caught in the idea that one practice is better or is the right way and it's what's suitable for you or for other people, I think this is the point where your ability to be fresh and to really encounter the present moment with freedom starts to narrow down. And playing and again being very creative about your spiritual practice. So cleaning the dishes is a spiritual practice, making food is a spiritual practice, making love is a spiritual practice. All of these ways to bring yourself into your life, to bring yourself fully, to commit yourself fully, to live a life of freedom, for me they are very helpful. When I dance within this, all of these different ways, when I allow myself and remind myself that, okay, now fixing my caravan is a way of doing this new thing, reaching a new place in the world, not repeating again and again the same things I already know, I already skilled at. I just left my career as a psychotherapist with a PhD in psychology, and I went on a different direction because I felt this is something I already know. This is something I've already became very, it's time for something new to be born. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of curiosity and courage, I think. So I think we are facing a really great challenge right now in our society, because we have reached to the point where the tyranny of the image, the way we live our life filtered by an image that is constantly being projected and being like thrown at us in order that we feel less, that we feel that something is missing, and all these dynamics that we are constantly participating in, of a whole society that puts measuring and comparing individuals to each other. Think about school, think about how a child is born into this world. The first thing that is done to him is that he's being measured, and they tell him if he's on which part of the graph he is. For me, as a psychedelic activist, as a meditator, as a spiritual teacher, the dream, or what I would like most of all to encourage and to create, are spaces in which people can drop this image of what are they supposed to be, to drop the idea that they are some kind of a product or a gadget, that they should be in a certain weight, that they should be in a certain intelligence, that they should have a certain profession or behave in a certain manner that is normal. I think this kind of regime of the heteronormative regime of again, and it became very, very severe with social media and surveillance capitalism. It became a real problem, because we are being fed with this idea constantly 24/7, and we have almost no spaces in our life in which we can just sense ourselves as the unique being that we are, and to meet another person or other people as the unique being that they are. We have hardly any spaces within our days or weeks that we can really connect to this great beauty that is surrounding us, of nature, that we can appreciate the beings that are trees or birds or clouds. For me, both psychedelics and meditation are merely kind of signs or kind of wake up calls for the individual and for the society to say, okay, we can live in a world which is so different than that. We can live in a world of intimacy. We can have centers, as you describe, in which people can come and not only again gain something or consume an experience or buy something. No, we can have centers in which we can show people an alternative mode of being together. And of being with oneself. I think in many psychedelic cultures that exist right now in the world, these things are actually happening. And if you look at temporary autonomous zones such as trance festivals sometimes, or places that are not medicalized, that are not filtered through the scientific model, but places that grew organically from within the psychedelic community, you find radical places of freedom, of creativity, ways in which people, women and men, can meet each other without the pornographic kind of regime of how we should relate to each other. So it's really posing an alternative that is much more healthy, that is much more connected, that is much more responsible. For me, as a, again, spiritual practitioner, this is the most important thing. This is like the wake-up call that our society needs before it destroys this planet. The wake-up call that says, no, there is another way to live together. There is another way to live in this body. There is another way to live in this mind. This way gives place to altered states, yes. This place gives place to creation, to expression, to freedom, okay? This place respect the uniqueness of each individual and does not try to compare one individual to another or to put all the individuals on the same line and to say who is better, like we see in schools, but it tries to do exactly the opposite. So I think of psychedelically oriented schools, okay? Psychedelically or meditation oriented spaces for little ones to grow. I'm a mother. I have a 5-year-old. I see how much attention and responsibility it takes to help an individual grow up or feel itself in a way which is not, again, dominated by what he should be or how he should look like or how he should behave or what he should think, without these dogmas and doctrines and brainwash of the media that is constantly happening around us. I think that when we take an example of this organic communities, even if they're temporary communities, that already forms these beautiful alternatives to mainstream society. For me, these are the directions I would like to see. I would like to see sustainable communities. I would like to see people that work together spiritually for a longer duration of time, and not this model of I'm selling you a retreat, I'm selling you an experience. No, I have students that are in relationship with me for 5, 6, and 10 years, and they go their own way, and sometimes they are teaching their own students, and it's great because this is the way we're doing, this way we create a real web, a real community of people that, again, facilitate for each other this ability to be, this ability to be present, this ability to be connected, this ability to be weird, this ability to be free. For me, this is like, if I think of such centers, I think of centers that contain school and contains a place for the elders and contain a place for those who have mental difficulties coming from many years into psychiatric institutions and wanting to pose an alternative to this. So for me, this kind of practice, this kind of development is not about marketing a new experience. Is about building a sustainable and responsible, psychedelically and spiritually oriented community that can hold me when I'm 90, community that can hold my son, community that can hold a person who is right now going through a terrible crisis and is depressed and wants to commit suicide. So this is the kind of community I would like to see.